No, I don't want you to talk. I want you to take it away from me. He wouldn't take it away. What is a prophet? We heard about the prophet Ezekiel in the first reading. Jesus said no prophet is without honor except when he's at his hometown. So what is a prophet? In the spiritual sense, a prophet is someone who speaks out and someone who speaks for. Again, in the spiritual sense, the scriptural sense, a prophet is one who speaks out, usually on the issues of the day. Sometimes we think prophecy is future telling, but it's really kind of like the editorial opinion in our newspapers. It's what's going on today. And a prophet speaks for on two levels. A prophet speaks for God, out of the Bible, and a prophet speaks for some particular issue. Justice, peace, reconciliation, whatever. So again, we heard about the call of Ezekiel. He said it was going to be a rough call. God said it won't be easy, but I'm sending you anyway. Because often prophets, in talking about the issues of the day, were telling the people, in this case the children of Israel, how bad their lives were, and then thus they earned the nickname prophets of doom, gloom. They were not very popular. And in Jesus' case, he went to his hometown. Now you'd think, they would be very, very excited. This miracle worker, this great eloquent speaker was coming home. There'd be the equivalent of a ticker tape parade or something, but they took offense at him. Who do you think you are? We saw you grew up here in Nazareth. You're just like the rest of us. Now you're telling us you're God. God called you. And so being a prophet isn't easy. Now you might think, well, there's no more prophecy in the Catholic Church today. We might say John the Baptist was the last real prophet. He was kind of a transition prophet, the last of the Jewish prophets, the first of the Christian prophets. But then there's John the Apostle and Evangelist. He wrote the only prophetic book in the New Testament called Book of Revelation. But even though the Bible is closed, there's nothing to add to the Bible, prophecy has been going on for 2,000 years, and certainly long before that in the Jewish faith. So I thought about some of the prophets in our own time, or at least close to our own time. I thought of Mahatma Gandhi, St. Teresa of Calcutta, Thomas Merton, Dorothy Day. These are great prophets, and if you don't know about them, Google, read all about them, amazing women and men. But there's one prophet I want to talk about today. As you know, I grew up here in Las Vegas. In the fall of 1958, I registered as a freshman at Gorman High School, of course at the original campus on Maryland Parkway. And on October 9th of my freshman year, we heard that the Pope had died. Now, all my life, we had had only one Pope. I was only 14 years old, but this Pope was elected in 1939. I was born in 1944. So only one Pope in my entire 14 years of living, and that was Pope Pius XII. Now, I thought that's a strange name, Pius. It sounds studious, serious, heavy. But he died. Now remember, our religion teacher at Gorman, Sister Esther Marie, she said, you are going to witness history now, you students. We're going to see the funeral of a pope, and we're going to see the election of a pope. So he died on October 9th, 1958. 19 days later, they elected a new pope. Again, I was at Gorman, and we talked about that. It was a man named Giuseppe Roncalli. He was from the city of Venice in Italy. He took the name John the 23rd. Now, as students at Gorman, 14-year-old kids, we knew nothing about the bishops of Italy. We had nothing to know about this guy. But in looking back now in history, maybe Pius XII died suddenly or whatever, but the cardinals, before they went into the conclave, where they are separated from each other in secrecy, hadn't got their politics together. Now, I hope it's not shocking to some of you that there are politics in the Catholic Church. Okay, we got over that. So they thought, well, let's just elect an interim pope. This guy's 78 years old. He's funny, he's round, he's fat, he's short. He'll kiss babies, he'll shake hands. He won't do anything. John the 23rd. Well, he was like a whirlwind of activity, he started the Second Vatican Council. One description of that Vatican Council was that he opened the doors to the church to let in fresh air. Depending on your point of view, you might say he let in a hurricane, or he only cracked the door a little bit and let in just a little breeze. Amazing man. He talked about two things before the council. An Italian word, aggiornamento, and that means renewal. We need to renew this church. It needs to step up to the 20th century. And so changes that many of us, certainly people younger than me, take for granted, Mass in English. I grew up as an altar boy at St. Bridget's, Mass in Latin. Many different things changed. And the other word was the French word, ressourcement, and that means to go back to the resources. So we went back to programs that hadn't been there for hundreds of years, like the RCIA program. That was in the early church, disappeared for about 1,200 years, and brought back by John the 23rd. So great changes. He was Pope then, my freshman year of high school. I've told you before that a number of people were influential in my becoming a priest. Certainly my uncle, Father John Kenny, founding pastor of Our Lady of Las Vegas Parish, Sister Esther Marie, that religion teacher at Gorman High School, and Pope John the 23rd. I was amazed at his vitality, at his vision. He was really prophetic. He saw the church in a whole new way. He was always positive, always smiling, always seemed happy. And if you know me, I'm an optimist. He also had a great sense of humor. One time someone asked him, how many people work in the Vatican? And he said, about half of them. And then he would say, apparently, when he'd go to bed at night, he'd say, Jesus, I'm tired. It's your church. You take care of it till I wake up in the morning. I'll check with you 6 a.m. Let Jesus take over. He knew his place. An amazing man. An amazing man. So he was a prophet for our times. A prophet, at least in my lifetime. Now, I want to tell you something interesting about John the 23rd and about this church, and particularly this altar here. Having a relic, a part of a saint's body, is now optional in Catholic churches. It used to be you had to have a relic in every altar, but that's optional now. So when I was down in Peru in 2016 looking at these marble sacred furnishings, they said, Father Bill, do you want a cavity in the center of the altar for a relic? And I said, yes. I had no idea what relic I would get, or if I'd get a relic. If I didn't, we would just cover it up empty. And then I'll keep a couple of priest names anonymous, not that there's anything wrong, but that they're not really part of the story as much. A priest in our diocese died, and I heard that he had a relic of John the 23rd. So then I heard that the relics that he had in his collection were given to another priest in the diocese here. So I finally contacted that priest, and he looked and looked and looked, and he couldn't find the relic of John the 23rd. Maybe he never had it. He wasn't sure. So I have a priest friend in Rome. I just call him Father Larry. That's his first name, Larry. And I said, you know, I've been looking for a relic of John the 23rd. He said, they're not to be had. I read this email from him, 9 o'clock on a Thursday night, about 2 months ago. There's no relics of John the 23rd to be had. So I went to bed, 9 o'clock here in Vegas is 6 a.m. in Rome. During the middle of the night, I heard my phone ping, and it was a message. And he said, you won't believe it. They decided to open the casket of John the 23rd. What an excellent opportunity to get a relic. But you have to write a letter to Cardinal Camastri, and so does Bishop Thomas. Now, he wasn't even our bishop yet. He'd been named bishop, but hadn't been installed. So I called Father Bob Stokic, Vicar General, Bishop's right-hand man, and I said, do you think it's silly for me to ask Bishop appointee Thomas to write a letter to Cardinal Camastri to get a relic of John the 23rd? He said, no, I think he'll be excited. So we both wrote letters. I also asked for a papal blessing from Pope Francis. That blessing is across the donor wall over in that part of the church. The blessing arrived in the mail, and I emailed Father Larry and said, the blessing is beautiful. But what about the relic? He says, well, I pass Cardinal Camastri 3 or 4 times a day, and he's the type of cardinal that you don't talk to him unless he talks to you first. I don't think you're going to get your relic. I said, okay. An hour later, I get an email. I just walked by Cardinal Camastri's office, and he called me in, and he said, we'll have a relic for your friend in July. My friend Father Larry said July is too late. We need it in May. So Cardinal Kamasi said, let's go early tomorrow morning before anyone gets into St. Peter's Basilica. I've got the key. We'll go in and we'll open up the casket of John the 23rd and we'll get you a relic for your friend in Vegas. Now, it sounds a little macabre, but that's what they did. And it was that relic that was placed in this altar on the dedication June 22nd, the relic of St. John the 23rd. And then when Bishop Thomas was installed, we went to the installation mass at the Shrine of the Holy Redeemer. His first 10 minutes of his homily was all about John the 23rd. I knew we were in good company with each other. So this prophet is guarding our church, St. John the 23rd, the relic in the altar. You can read about the relic on the wall opposite the entrance to the Eucharistic Chapel over there. But what does John the 23rd have to say to us? The same things he said in the late 50s, early 60s. Aggiornamento and ressourcement. Aggiornamento, renewal. This new church gives us a chance to renew our faith. We were kind of stuck, if you will, stagnant for 10 years in a cafeteria. I thank God for the generosity of Bishop Gorman High School. There couldn't have been a better landlord than the Gorman administration, but it was a cafeteria nonetheless. Maybe we're kind of stuck there, comfortable there. People liked it there. But this new church gives us aggiornamento, a chance to renew our faith. And ressourcement, it means that we get to go back to some of the sources of our faith. A Eucharistic chapel we can pray in from 6:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. Stations of the Cross. Just visiting the church here any time of the day. Things we couldn't do in a weekend cafeteria setting. So John the 23rd will be our prophet for years to come here at this parish. And how can you be a prophet? In just a moment, I'm going to baptize this beautiful little baby, Gabriela Lucia, and you'll hear me when I put oil upon her. You are priest, prophet, and king. To be a prophet means that we speak out. And here's a very practical way that you can speak out. People have already come to this church, and just because of the beauty of this church, they're joining the parish or they're coming back to the Catholic faith. Already, I know of 3 construction workers who worked on building this church, and they said, I used to be Catholic, and I'm going to come back. That's good stuff. And so invite your friends. You might have family, you might have relatives, neighbors, co-workers. Say, you got to see this beautiful church behind Gorman High School. It's really beautiful. And maybe they'll not only take in the beauty, maybe they'll come join the faith or come back to the faith. That's being a prophet. Speaking out. So use this beautiful church of yours as kind of bait to kind of reel them into the faith that we all love so much. St. John the 23rd, pray for us.